And welcome everybody to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12 Ounce Sports platform and networks. That includes Twitter Live, Facebook Live, Twitch, our YouTube channel, and of course we are live on Zingo TV, channel 761. Man, I'll tell you what, that Manhattan Spiritual always gets me fired up. You know, for those of you that may not know, that was when I was younger. We used to go to the basketball games at Munising High School. I know it sounds crazy. In a little gym called the Pit, about 1,000 people, maybe 500. I don't know how much it could fit, but it was a little band box. And our pep band used to play this song for the basketball team to come out, and it used to rock. And boy, I tell you, every time I hear that song, it just gets me fired up, and I'm fired up to be here tonight with you. We've got a great lineup of guests coming up tonight. We're going to talk NFL, college football, the last week of Major League Baseball in the regular season, and we've got a wild card scenario that could develop. I hope it does anyways, for a possible 3 or 4 team play-in in Major League Baseball in the American League. So we'll have to wait and see about that. We're going to talk, as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about Ben Simmons maybe. I don't know, probably not. You know, I'm so tired of that story. He's going to rot away or send him, like we said last week, send him to Memphis for all I care. And we're also going to talk a little AEW wrestling if we have time tonight. Scheduled to join us at 8:30, Nikki DeMatthews from the 3rd and 3 podcast. She's going to stop by. We're going to talk New York Giants football, maybe some Yankees with her. Also, we'll talk a little NFC East with her as well. Just kind of get her feel for what's going on. 3 weeks in the books, and I kind of feel bad, almost feel bad. You know, I've got 2 guests tonight. Both their teams are struggling, the Giants and the Bears. But, you know, my Lions are struggling as well. And we'll talk about that missed delay of game call and that 66-yard field goal. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But we're going to talk to Nikki at 8:30. She, again, is from the 3rd and 3 podcast. Coming up at the top of the second hour, we're going to talk to Chris Krogman. I had a chance, actually, to talk with him last night. He is from the Believe in Monsters podcast. He stopped by, Chicago Bear guy as well. We're going to talk with him about the Bears. What's going on in Chi-Town, man? Things are getting ugly for Matt Nagy and the Chicago Bears. We'll see. We'll get his pulse on the temperature in the Windy City and see what he thinks, if there's going to be a coaching change or what is going on in Chicago, because it is a hot mess. We'll talk NFC North with him as well and picked his brain a little bit about the Golden Domers too. So great conversation we had with Chris. We'll play that interview for you at the top of the second hour. And then at the bottom of the second hour, my co-host from our wrestling extravaganza, which we will be getting back on the air probably in November. We're going to start running that program back just with our schedules, his and mine. You know, he's a busy guy, my tag team partner, Matt Gamlin, but he's going to stop by in the last half hour. We're going to talk a little AEW, kind of starting to change the landscape a little bit in the world of professional wrestling. So we're going to talk to him, but more importantly, he's going to be our guest prognosticator for the Captain Lou 6-Pack Challenge. We've got a new list of games for you tonight, and we want you to be a part of the action. Maybe you can win your games, or you could beat me in those picks. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. How that works is I pick 3 games against college, 3 games the pros against the spread. You have to pick those games along with me. If you beat me at picking those 6 games, you're in the drawing for a $100 Visa gift card and a $100 Fanatics certificate, courtesy of us here at the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Prizes are better, and we want you to be a part of it as well. So it's that easy. What you need to do, drop those answers. Follow me on Twitter at The Real Captain Lou. Follow me on Facebook. Louis Gamlin is my name for those of you that don't know me. Or I want to say 95% of everybody's doing it. It's great. Drop me an email, captainlousports@gmail.com. I'll have these games posted tomorrow on my Twitter feed and also on my Facebook page, so check that out as well. But you can watch us later on. In case you missed it, it'll be posted. So we'll give those games probably about 9:35, somewhere in that area tonight. So make sure you stick around for that. So, again, a lot going on in the world of sports with college football through 4 weeks. One of the big surprises, maybe Arkansas, Penn State, Iowa, or maybe the demise of Clemson for those of you that are holding on to a shred of hope in college football. It's funny, I was talking with my nephew, and he told me, Captain, one team to keep an eye on in the ACC is Wake Forest. They're undefeated. And anything could happen. Who knows? Wouldn't that be something if Wake Forest cracked the top 15 or even got into the playoff conversation? They'd have to win out. But I think with Clemson losing 2 games, that just makes the ACC look that much worse. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll wait and see on that. So, but it's kind of neat to just give it a thought for a second. But I don't know if you watched any of the games this past weekend. Wasn't really a great weekend for college football. But I'll tell you what, Arkansas, we might have to get Tim Ham back on here in a little while. Not to gloat, but I know he's got to be just scratching his head thinking, what's going on with Texas A&M? We talked to them. We hyped them up at the beginning of the year, and I was right there with them as A&M possibly being a top team, possibly contending with Alabama to get into the playoff. Well, that got shot down. Arkansas surprised them, jumped out to that big lead and hung on. KJ Jefferson's the real deal at quarterback. Now, I know they've got a big test coming up Saturday with Georgia. That's a high noon kick along with Michigan and Wisconsin. So that's going to be a great game right out of the chute. And then you've got Alabama and Ole Miss. I think that's the 3:30 game. Those are the 2 big games. Of course, SEC country, they dominate right now. You could look at the polls. You've got Georgia and Alabama 1 and 2, Oregon 3, but then you've got Penn State and Iowa at 4 and 5. The other big game of the weekend, though, Notre Dame and Cincinnati. I'm not on the Notre Dame hype train. I'm sorry. I watched bits and pieces of that game Saturday. I watched the first half before I went to tailgate over in East Lansing for a while prior to the Michigan State game against Nebraska last week. Want to thank my brother-in-law Steve and my sister-in-law Jody for hosting quite a fun spread. That was a lot of fun. They know how to tailgate in East Lansing. If you ever get a chance to go to a game in East Lansing, especially now with Michigan State looking pretty darn good. They hung on for dear life against Nebraska, but they're still undefeated. I wouldn't take Michigan State lightly, and you can see the banner in the background there. You know who I root for, and I'm scared to death of them. Mel Tucker's got things going in Michigan State. But anyways, getting back to Notre Dame and Wisconsin. Notre Dame got 3 touchdowns because of special teams and defense. The pick sixes and the kick return. That game was a lot closer than what the score indicated. I'm not sold on Notre Dame, but it's going to be a good test. We'll see how good Cincinnati really is. They win this game Saturday against Notre Dame. Obviously, it's going to give them a lot more cachet. Can Cincinnati finally break through as a group of 5 team to get in? That's going to be their test going to Notre Dame to take on the Irish. But like I said, they're always there every year. Notre Dame's always there. But I think that game against Wisconsin was kind of a misnomer, in my opinion. They didn't look very good in the first half. Neither team did. Wisconsin struggling, in my opinion, as far as Wisconsin goes, up to their expectations. Now, are they going to be ripe for the pickings for Michigan? I don't know. Michigan's rolling, but they kind of got figured out a little bit by Rutgers in the second half. And they were dominant. And then all of a sudden, they couldn't get a first down until the last drive of the fourth quarter. Rutgers with a couple of questionable calls, that fake field goal or fake fourth down or whatever the hell that was in the first half. Okay. And then, some questionable play calling in the fourth quarter. Michigan got a break in that game. My question is, are they going to be able to take advantage of it? That's the question for sure. Michigan State, though, was in the same boat. They look like two different teams. And that was the first game where Walker was not dominant. They bottled him up, and they forced Thorne to beat him. Boy, he took some shots in that game. I don't know if he was concussed or not, but that was a physical game in that one. So, going to be an interesting scenario with Michigan, Wisconsin. Again, Arkansas and Georgia is probably the big game, along with Notre Dame and Cincinnati and Alabama and Ole Miss. Those are the top three games of the weekend. The Saturday night game, Indiana and Penn State. No, Indiana hasn't shown me much. Penn State's rolling. Kind of a revenge factor maybe from a couple of years ago. I don't know. Or last year. Possibly. Will Penn State use that to their advantage? Penn State's pretty good. But they've got Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State left on their schedule. They run the gauntlet on that, then they deserve to go to the playoff. Iowa looks pretty tough on defense, and they're ranked 5th. They don't have to play Michigan. They don't have to play Ohio State. Their road to the Big Ten championship game looks pretty a lot more easy. Let's just say that. So we got a lot to talk about tonight on the show. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to wallow in self-pity for my Lions again. We can't win for losing. We'll talk about the game that was that 66-yard field goal by Justin Tucker. And, we can't catch a break. Can't catch a break. We'll talk more about that. Again, we've still got a lot to talk about. 3 great guests lined up. Nikki DeMatthews from the 3rd and 3 podcast. She'll be coming on. She'll be calling in about 15 minutes from now. Top of the hour, we're going to play our interview with Chris Krogman from the Believe in the Monsters podcast. Talk a little Chicago Bears, and, of course, Matt Gamlin at the bottom of the second hour, our guest prognosticator for the Captain Lou Six-Pack Challenge, and we'll talk a little AEW wrestling with him. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot to go. We just got started. We're here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live, here on the 12-Ounce Sports Platform and Networks and the Zingo TV, Channel 761.
Twelve-Ounce Sports has a new home for betting. BetUS.com is the official place to place your bets and support 12-Ounce Sports. All you have to do is go to BetUS.com and type in the promo code 120Z and you'll instantly get a deposit bonus. This is America's favorite sports book. And remember, always gamble responsibly.
Hey, a reminder that as we welcome you back to the 12-Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Platform and Networks, including Zingo TV, channel 761. Hey, this reminder, again, go back to BetUS. Check them out, betus.com, and use the promo code 12ounce. When you make your first deposit, it's a 125% match. What that means is if you put $100 in, they'll give you $125 extra. That's $225 to bet on whatever you want to do, whatever you want to bet on. Football, basketball, baseball. Basketball's coming up, hockey in 3 weeks. College football. Put a few shackles on the Lions game this week against the Bears. Put a few shackles to see if the referees will forget how to count backwards to 0. That's BetUS, where you get your first deposit matched up to $1,000, 125%. It's that simple. For every $100 you put in, you get an extra 125 back. So, for example, you put 200 in, you get 250. That's your bonus. That's a no-brainer. That is the lock of the decade right there. It's that easy. It's a no-brainer. Do it. Tell him the captain sent you, too. Tell him Captain Lou talked you into it. It's easy. It's safe. And they got a lot of cool stuff. They got a lot of cool parlays on there. You name it. Different kind of things that you can bet on. The games, different side bets, props, you name it. And they also got a pretty cool casino area with roulette and the different table games. So check it out. BetUS. And, of course, that is a 125% bonus up to $1,000. So get in there and tell them the captain sent you. Well, again, we got Nikki DeMatthews coming up. We'll commiserate about how bad our teams have starting. Her Giants, my Lions. Sunday afternoon, sat down and watched the Lions. Boy, they looked putrid in the first half. They couldn't cover anybody. They couldn't cover a cheap. They couldn't catch a cold. Couldn't do anything. They were damn lucky Hollywood Brown dropped those 2 long passes, or it could have been Katie by the door then. Well, I give Dan Campbell credit for the Lions. They made a couple of adjustments. Matt Patricia never did that. He was too damn stubborn. Well, the Lions ended up, they were down, 10-0 at halftime, 13-0. Took the lead, 17-16. Going into with about 35 seconds left. It was a minute, whatever it was, a minute something. 4th and 16, or 4th and 19, first of all. This is what pissed me off almost as much as it made me upset, but not as much as the blown call. When you're rushing 4, you got them in trouble, why do you rush 3 and give them all day to throw? I've never figured that out. Never. I'm not a football genius. I'm not a coach. If I was, with all due respect, I wouldn't be hosting the show tonight. If I was an NFL coach, I'd be breaking down film. But why do you drop back? Why do they do the Wayne Fonts prevent? Never works. Never. And you got a quarterback like that, a former MVP in Lamar Jackson, who's been struggling. You had him figured out. Okay, fine. They get down to the 48 or whatever it was. They stop him. Baltimore obviously was befuddled. They didn't know what to do. It was evident because the play clock ran out. It was evident to everybody in the stadium except the striped shirt people with the whistles and the hats. They gave him an extra 1.8 to 2 seconds. And Mike, I don't want to care. I don't want to hear about how it's not called all the time. That doesn't make it right. It was evident. It was there. It's just another example of getting bent over. And I'm going to leave it at that. But then again, we didn't think Justin Tucker was going to make that field goal. For those of you that a lot of you probably weren't around to see Tom Dempsey kick that field goal in 1970. You could see film of it, and you could hear afterwards, Alex Karras was on the line of scrimmage laughing. Didn't think he had a prayer to make that for the Saints. Boom. 63-yarder in the books. Well, I'm sitting in the car listening to the game, with my dad, who's down visiting, and with my wife. We're going over to my other brother-in-law, Chuck's house, and it was my sister-in-law, Joanne's birthday. We're going over for dinner. So we're on the way over. We're listening. We're thinking, all right, here we go. Lions go to 1-2. If the Packers somehow lose, Dan Campbell's tied for first after 3 weeks. They set up for the field goal. And I'm thinking, there is no way. I knew Justin Tucker had the leg, but I'm thinking, no way. Especially after what happened with Matt Prater against the Jaguars. I'm thinking, no, they can't. And you can hear Dan Miller, who does an awesome job for play-by-play for the Detroit Lions on the radio side. He says, they can't make this, can they? And they kicked it. He's like, oh, it's got plenty of leg. It's straight. It's off the crossbar. And it goes over the crossbar. I kind of looked at my dad. We kind of looked at each other, and we went, holy bleep. And I can hear my wife chuckle in the back. And my brother-in-law, who was impervious to it, he wasn't watching it. He said, what's wrong? I said, you're not going to believe this one. He said, the Lions lost, right? I said, yeah, but you're not going to believe how. Not only did he make it, he hit the crossbar and it rolled over. Only Detroit. They don't get the face masking. They don't get the face guarding call. They pick up the flag. Thanks, Dean Blandino, who I still, who was on the party bus against the Cowboys the night before. They get the phantom face mask against Green Bay. Gives Aaron Rodgers that chance for that Hail Mary. I got to tell you, man, we're jinxed. Bobby Lane is up there laughing still with that Bobby Lane curse when he got traded, 65 years ago after the Lions won their last world championship back in 1957. God, that was tough. That was tough to swallow. Tough break for my Lions, man. We're 0-3. And the thing is, they played lousy, I thought, in the first half. Maybe it was a carryover from that Packers game when they played great the first half and played horribly in the second half. Well, I got to tell you, I'd almost gave up on them, but then I'm right there. I'm a masochist right there till the end, and I'll be there Sunday against the Bears, front and center. But I just don't see it. I don't see how they can. I don't know. I think the Lions can win that game. The Bears are a mess. Oh, boy, just another heartbreaking way to lose. It just never gets easier to be a Lions fan. I listen to some of these other fan bases, like the Jaguars or the Texans, or as we'll find out in a few minutes, the Giants. Their expectations are higher. The Jets, and I don't feel sorry for them. The Jets have won a Super Bowl. They've been to a couple AFC championship games in the last 15 years. The Giants have won 4 Super Bowls. The Texans, they haven't been around for 185 years, it seems like the Lions have. This is dreadful. Yeah, I still will have the faith. I hope anyways. Well, anyways, let's go to our Captain Lou Extravaganza guest line, and we'll bring in our first guest. We can wallow in each other's misery, me being a Lions fan, her being a Giants fan. Let's bring in Nikki DeMatthews. Nikki, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. Yes, I am. I'm still wallowing.
Oh, my gosh. And I'm not here to make fun of you. I have no room to talk with that 66-yard field goal that rolled over the crossbar last Sunday for my Lions. But,
yeah.
Oh, Nikki, where do we begin? You guys had some expectations. This is, I believe, the third year of the Daniel Jones experiment. In your eyes, through your podcast, and as a Giants fan, what do you think of Daniel Jones right off the get-go? Because before you answer it, we've got a guest of one of our morning show, our AM drive show, that is a Daniel Jones apologist.
Okay.
And give me your thoughts. Is it on him? Is it on Saquon? Who's it on? And how do you think Daniel's doing?
Okay, so wasn't the biggest Daniel Jones fan. In fact, I remember when they drafted him, I kind of had that moment like, what? Like, ruh-roh, what's going on here? Are you sure? Is this right? What are they doing? Really, I kind of got to this point that I was like, I think we've seen enough. But I will give him this. I do not put the losses on him.
Okay.
I am not a fan, but I do not put the losses on him. I actually put this all on John Mara and Steve Tisch. Like, I think ownership needs to take a long, hard look. Because I put on the Giants game, and it could be any game from the past 10 years. It's the same game over and over and over and over again. It's the same, issues with the offensive line. I'm waiting for Dave Gettleman. He keeps telling me these hog mollies are coming. Where's the hog mollies? Where are they? Like, what's going on? I mean, he's right yet, but then again, this offensive line, I don't know. They stand. So I think I'm not a fan of Gettleman. I think ownership really, and John Mara is knocking over trash cans and stuff. This is on you. So I think they need to take a long, hard look and kind of maybe reevaluate some things there.
Nikki.
Listen, everybody thought it was Eli.
Yeah.
Didn't appear to be so. Everyone thinks it's Daniel Jones. And I don't think he's doing too bad. I think he's doing what he can with what he has.
Nikki, that's a great point you bring up about the Maras. It's almost like a carbon copy, and I don't want to keep comparing them to Detroit because you guys have won 4 Super Bowls, and we haven't even got there yet. But you got the Mara family, you got the Ford family. Now, I know Wellington Mara was a lot more involved. It just seems like status quo, just bring the money in, and we're fine with it. And I'm with you. I was going to ask you, how long do you think this leash is going to be for Gettleman? It just seems like he gets chance after chance after chance with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I don't know. It's listen, I think we end up with the first pick, I guess, next year because of that trade with Philly. I don't want him touching that pick. I really don't. I really don't. And I don't know, this is on him as well. Maybe it's the scouting department. But you can compare the Giants to Detroit in some respects because it feels like we're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And we're on like this hamster wheel and nobody can quite get off. And we have the same problems over and over again. So I don't know if they win 1, 2, maybe 3 games, I mean, no, I think he has to be out of here.
That bad, huh? You really think it's going to be that bad there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you hear the jokes, knock, knock, who's there? Owen. I mean, it started right away. I'm so sick of it.
Oh, my God. God, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that since 2008 when Detroit went 0-16. My God, that's bringing back memories.
Oh, about that. Yes.
Oh my God, you're bringing back nightmares. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
It's all good, man. It's funny. No, I have to ask you now. I've never been a Joe Judge guy. Maybe it's not long enough. I know he's got the tough guy mentality, and again, he comes from the Bill Belichick coaching tree, just like Matt Patricia did. And what is your impressions of him so far?
It's tough because it's only year 2. Okay. I kind of would give any new coach, I don't know, I don't put a ton of stock into their first year, right? It just cannot be an easy situation to walk into. He's from the Belichick coaching tree, but he's no Bill Belichick, right?
No.
And I don't know that the players are buying in. I know Kenny Galladay's screaming and yelling at, Jason Garrett. And, I know the players in training camp felt Joe Judge. Well, this is what comes out in the media. I'm not speaking for certain, but yeah. They say, oh, he's making us run laps. This is high school. So I'm not sure, but if we're just going based on record, and I'm not really, because we're not in games, and here we go, another losing season. It's not even it's not even, and we didn't even get to October 1st yet, and already it's done and over with.
Well, I got to tell you, you brought up a name that I just another one, and that's Kenny Galladay. I know he used to be a Lion, and
Yes.
Nikki, get used to that with him. Is all I'm going to
Oh,
say.
really?
Oh, he
Okay.
pouted in Detroit. Now, granted, he was hurt a little bit, and obviously, I think it was pretty evident that Matt Patricia lost the locker room. I never seen a coach alienate so many players as Matt Patricia did in such a short amount of time. But when the Giants offered Galladay that contract, I was like, holy cow. I thought he better take that before they change their minds. And I good luck with them. I hope I'm wrong for your sake. I've got some friends that are really big Giant fans, and for you guys' sake, gal's sake, I hope he does good, but look out is all I'm saying.
Wow. Worse than would you put him, I don't know, greater than, less than, or equal to the antics, divaness of an Odell Beckham Jr.?
Well, you know what? I don't think I don't know if anybody could top Odell for what he did there, but he's along that line, but
Okay.
I don't think he's got the talent of Odell.
Correct.
And for that kind of loot that you guys gave him, wow. We're talking with Nikki DeMatthews. She's one of the hosts of the 3rd and 3 podcast. Great podcast, by the way. I had a chance to listen to it, and you can follow her on Twitter at NikkiNick9384. Nikki, with the Giants, Saquon Barkley, another first round draft pick. He looked good at Penn State, and people are kind of dogging him. Is he a tad overrated? Maybe, but I think injuries have slowed him down a little bit. No?
Oh yeah, 100%. I can't. I wouldn't act. I wouldn't venture to say that he is overrated, underrated, appropriately rated. He's coming off an injury.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Seems like, hey, listen, if you're Dak Prescott, you're coming off an injury, you're the best thing that ever happened. You're Saquon Barkley, all of a sudden you're a bust. This was a terrible pick. I mean, let's just see. Again, this offensive line is putrid. So I don't know how much success anyone would have. So I will reserve my judgment until further down the road.
So you said the offensive line is a little rough, and it's funny as I've got my next guest coming up at 9:00. He's from Chicago, so this is like misery loves company night here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We've got, we're all kind of fishing for some wins here, but give me a bright spot if there is any for the Giants this year. Maybe a pleasant surprise that you've seen watching the game so far this year.
I am pleasantly surprised to see Daniel Jones improve somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there have been spots in games where he just kind of had this, I got to do this. I got to put this team on my back. I got to drive down. He's been our leading rusher, for God's sake, for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I have been pleasantly surprised to see that. I like to see, listen, you can have bad years, you can have rebuilding years, but you have to see progress, right? Especially if you're asking fans for all this money for PSL. It was a beautiful weekend in the tri-state area this weekend. This is New York, New Jersey, like there are things to do. Listen, if you're going to put a crappy product out on the field, I don't know how it's over and over again. You expect people to fork over this money. That's a tough sell. It's going to be a tough ask, but if you're improving, I'm okay with the down year. So I see him taking steps. I see him improving, and I'm happy with that.
So you're looking at possibly 3 or 4 wins for the Giants. Kind of, as much as I like to kid people and I say the Lions are going to go 10-7. They got to go 10-4 to beat that, to get to that. So that's not happening.
No.
Best case scenario for your Giants. What do you really in your gut do you think they can do? Do you think they can turn it around?
No.
Okay.
No, it kills me to say that. Breaks my heart. I don't want to say that about my own team.
Yeah.
I just think, every game we're getting 10, 11 penalties. Now, I do think the games have been called pretty terribly the
Oh,
past few weeks. Just
oh,
all across the board. I mean, the poor 49ers against, Green
yep.
Bay. It didn't matter where they're, it just didn't matter. It was pass interference constantly. So I do think across the board,
Yeah.
I don't like the way the games are being called. But the Giants are just, listen, you can't make these kind of mistakes. You can't turn the ball over. You can't have 11 penalties and think that you're going to be able to win the game, because that's not going to happen. So, I just think they're too undisciplined. And just kind of taking a quick look at their schedule. I mean, it's the Saints, it's the Cowboys, then the Rams, the
Ugh.
Panthers, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Bucks, the Eagles, like
Ouch.
Dolphins, Chargers. Yeah, I don't see where the win is. Oh, they got
Ouch.
Chicago on January 2nd. So we'll see.
Ouch. My God. I can see why you're only predicting 3 wins, man. That's worse than Detroit's. Holy
Oh.
smokes. Oi, oi, oi. I'll tell you what. I may have to have you on in January again just so we can commiserate about 2 wins apiece or something. Oh, my Lord.
Let's do it. I'll make sure I have my cocktail with me, because
There you go. There you go. Hey, if you don't mind, let's take a look at get your take on what's going on in your division, which is the NFC East. Cowboys look pretty good, but last night from what I saw, but how much of that do you think is the Cowboys, and how much of that do you think is how bad really Philadelphia is?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think Philly usually has a pretty decent defense. Now, I think
Yeah.
there's years where they're just amazing, and Fletcher Cox is just a nightmare. I hate that guy. No, he's really talented, but I mean, just like nightmarish. So I don't really worry about their defense. I don't think Jalen Hurts did himself any favors. I saw on Twitter, I don't even think they got to halftime, and Philly fans were like, "Where's Joe Flacco? He's a Super Bowl. Put Flacco in." Like, Philly's tough, man. You think New York is tough? Philly is.
Anybody that'll boo Santa Claus, yeah.
Yes, yeah, they're rough. So, and I feel like with Dallas, we kind of have to. Try to be objective here. I think Dak does look good,
Yeah.
but I think there's always just a lot of hoopla, right? They're always the anointed, like they're winning the Super Bowl, they're winning the whole deal. Like it's just a lot of, fanfare goes on. So we'll see. Yeah, you played a Philly team that's not great. They have a brand new quarterback, a brand new head coach. Their offensive line is not great. So, I don't think that was the game to judge where Dallas is. We'll see. We'll see a little bit later in the season. But they do. I'll give Dallas that. They do look good.
And I think they're going to win that division by default this year, because I look at the Redskins and, their defense was touted as all that and a bag of chips. And, Nikki, to be honest with you, I think their defense has been a disappointment. And obviously they don't have much of a quarterback situation there either.
Yeah, we did our predictions on 3rd and 3 podcast. Granted, it was like end of August. We wanted to get him in. And I had said that I thought that Washington would win the division, and I put that mostly on, I thought Fitzmagic just might be able to make something happen, because they have good receivers. And I thought that defense, I'm high on Chase Young. I really thought that defense would be unstoppable. They were really good last year. I like Ron Rivera. I think he's a better coach than Mike McCarthy in terms of like clock management and knowing when to take timeouts. And
For sure.
So I really thought that they would. I thought that they might really give Dallas a run for their money, but I'm with you. I don't know what's going on. This is not the defense I thought that we would see from Washington.
Before I let you go, Nikki, can I ask you a couple of New York Yankee questions?
Oh gosh, I haven't really watched baseball this season.
Oh, okay. I saw that you were a Yankee fan. I'll let it go then. I was going to say, are you nervous with what could they could be on the outside looking in? Wow, I didn't see this happening. I thought they were going to dominate that division.
Yeah, it's well, you know what? I hear a lot of it. I listen to obviously New York sports radio.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of Yankee fans out there are just, they're nervous. Baseball, I'm funny with it. I have years where like I'm really into it, and then I think it just depends what's going on, right, in life, and like what capacity you have to keep up with things. And then I have years where it's kind of like, don't watch. I'm kind of in between there, but no, I hear it all every day, and I get it. So it'll be very interesting. We'll see.
Oh, it indeed will. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on with all the wild card scenarios where there could be a 3 or 4 or 5-way tie. It's going to be fun last week. I know they finished with Toronto and Tampa this weekend to try to get in, so the road's pretty tough to hoe. Nikki, tell us a little bit about your podcast so everybody that's watching and listening can take a listen to it.
Yeah, so co-host Third and Three podcast with Jason Fearman and Damian Adams. We are live Wednesday nights at 8:00. We go on Facebook Live. Of course, here the show Thursday mornings. We upload it to Anchor and Spotify and Apple. What is it?
iTunes.
Podcast, iTunes. Yeah, there you go. All that good stuff. But you know what? It's great, guys. We was kind of born out of the pandemic. Got together. We're in a pick'em league together, and just kind of started doing this, and people liked it. We kind of kept going, and here we are. We're just over a year into it, and we're growing more and more, and it's a lot of fun. So
that's the main thing, having fun doing it, even though our teams aren't doing real good. Hey, I'm the eternal optimist. There's got to be a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow somewhere. We'll get there. Nikki, thanks a lot for taking time out tonight. This has been a lot of fun. Good luck with your podcast. Good luck with your Giants, and enjoy the rest of the football season.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, you bet. Nikki DeMatthews joining us here on the show from the Third and Three podcast. Oh, there you go, Mike, from the AM Drive, which you can watch every day from 10 a.m. to 11 Eastern Time and 7 o'clock Pacific and all points in between. She's right there with you. Daniel Jones, she's not an apologist, but it's not his fault. So there you go. You got someone kind of on your side, Mike. So there you go. The Giants are in rougher shape than the Lions. And that's pretty scary. Take a look at this. She brought up that schedule that the Giants have. Dallas, Kansas City, Carolina, just to name a few. Seattle, brutal. It's brutal. The Rams, maybe they are only going to win 3 games. I'm still not sold on Daniel Jones. Still not sold on Joe Judge. And Dave Gettleman, to me, is the Russ Thomas, who used to be the GM of the Lions for 25 years and did absolutely nothing. He's the Russ Thomas of the 2020s. And that's not a good sign for Giants fans. And like I told her, watch out for Kenny Golladay. He's not Odell Beckham with the antics, but I think he's a little bit more of a whiner than Odell was, if that's at all possible. We're going to take a break. We mentioned it right before at the end of our interview with Nikki DeMatthews, and again, want to thank her for joining us. We're going to take a look at the baseball scenario. MLB coming up after the break. Wild Card City coming up this week. The National League wild card's pretty much set. Well, it's either going to be St. Louis and the Dodgers or St. Louis and the Giants. It's more and more looking like the Dodgers. But the AL wild card could be quite interesting coming up here towards the end of the weekend. Let's hope anyways. Let's take a break. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-ounce sports platform and networks, which includes Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, as always, Zingo TV, channel 761. Don't go away. We got lots to go right here on the Extravaganza.
Twelve-ounce Sports has a new home for betting. BetUS.com is the official place to place your bets and support 12-ounce sports. All you have to do is go to BetUS.com and type in the promo code 120ZE and you'll instantly get a deposit bonus. This is America's favorite sports book. And remember, always gamble responsibly.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Platform and Networks. Zingo TV Channel 761, Tuesday, September the 29th, 2021. That's right, September is almost over. Last week of September means it's the last week of Major League Baseball. And, we're talking about it before the break and also talked a little bit about it with Nikki. She, again, being a Yankee fan, I thought she could shed some light, but, to her honesty, she hasn't really watched them a whole lot, but we're looking at what could possibly happen in Major League Baseball. The wild card situation is upon us right now. And if you look at the wild card standings right now, going into tonight's games, the New York Yankees are 89 and 67, Boston 88 and 68, the Jays are 87 and 69, Seattle a half game back, in Oakland at 85 and 72. So there's a potential for some tie breaks, some three-way ties, four-way ties. Who knows? But there is some potential for some really, really fun things to come up next week. Kind of like maybe a play-in game or the NBA scenario what they had earlier this year, and it sounds like they're going to keep. Let's take a look at some of the scenarios. Obviously, the first one, two teams with the best records with no ties, they play each other. Then you got two teams tied atop the wild card standings. That way the best head-to-head record will obviously get that. The only tie scenario without head-to-head is Boston and Oakland. Boston would get the tiebreaker and host that game if it's those two and they have identical records because they have a better intra-divisional game record. So they would win the tiebreak. Now, obviously, if two teams tie for the second wild card spot, then the top team gets to host it, while the second and third team would play on Monday in game 163. Now, if there's three teams tied for two wild cards, let's say all three of them have 89 wins, or five team, whatever. The team with the best record, regular season, head-to-head, against the others would get what amounts to the first pick of the draft. They would go to Club A, Club B, or Club C. Club A would play Club B. The winner advances to the wild card game. The loser then would play Club C. The winner of that game would advance to play the wild card winner in game A, in the first game. You follow me so far? So, for example, if Boston, New York, and Toronto are all tied at 91 and 71, Boston would get the first. They got the first tiebreak because they have the best regular season record against everybody. So that just means they lost to all the piddly teams. So they would get the choice of what they want to do. They could host the first tiebreaker against Club B, or they could play. They could be in Club C if they want. Whatever. They would choose Club A. They would get the home game either way. So I think they would do that. If there's a three-way tie for two spots with Toronto, New York, and Seattle, Seattle beat Toronto in the season series, Toronto beat New York, and New York beat Seattle. Because the tiebreak is a combined record in games not against each other, then the draft order would be New York, Seattle, and Toronto. Now the chances of that happening are very, very slim, under 0.5%. Now, if three teams tie for the second wild card spot, it kind of goes along the same lines. That percentage of happening could be almost 5%. So it's pretty wild. Four-team tie for two wild card spots. I can't even get into that, but it's possible. Club A would close. It would be like a kind of a bracket situation. Club A would host Club B or Club D or whatever. Club A would go against Club D. B would go up against C, and then the two winners would face off. One team wins the top spot. The 4 teams tie for the second. Again, you would have that scenario, A versus B, C versus D, and then boom, they'd play each other. And then the winner would play A, or the number 1 team. Now, there is a 5-way tie scenario, but that's like 1 in 100,000. So I don't know if that's going to happen. But anyways, again, let's look at the standings real quick. And for Major League Baseball right now, the Yankees have a 1-game lead over the Boston Red Sox, 2 games over Toronto. Boston leads Toronto by 1. The Mariners by 1.5. Oakland is hanging on to dear life, a 3.5 game lead. Or they're trailed by 3.5. Everybody else is out. New York plays Toronto right now, 3 games. Then they go play Seattle or Tampa Bay. I don't know what Tampa has left to play for. Just looking at the standings real quick, Tampa's got the best record pretty much wrapped up. So they're going to host no matter what. So they may rest some players. Who knows? But again, it gets murky. Chicago and Houston, they've got something to play for. Seattle is still mathematically alive for the division, by the way, but I don't know if that's going to happen. It's going to take a miracle for them to come back, cut into a 4.5 game lead with 6 games left? 7 for Seattle, 6 for Houston. National League, it's either going to be the Giants or the Dodgers as the wild card team. Giants have a 2-game lead over the Dodgers. What happened to the Padres? You talk about free fall. They're going to finish below 500. We talked about this last week. They could finish behind the Detroit Tigers. Detroit right now is sitting at 75 and 81. They got to win all the rest of their games to get to 500. That's not going to happen. But wouldn't that be something? The almighty Padres, with all that money they spent and all of that, hype and whatnot, they could finish behind Detroit. And take a look at the National League East. Philadelphia, you heard the burn with Mitch Bernstein, big Philly guy. Great job on your video today, Mitch. Did a wonderful job. They're talking like they have an opportunity to overtake the Braves. Now, let's take a look at the schedule. I want to take a look at this. Atlanta's got 3 with Philadelphia. So it's possible. They're holding out a shred of hope tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday. But let's take a look at this weekend. Let's see what the matchups are of importance. Tampa's at New York. Boston at Washington. Washington's mailed it in. San Diego at San Francisco. LA at Seattle. Oh, that's the Angels. I beg your pardon. The Dodgers are hosting Milwaukee for 3 games. Atlanta. They are home to New York. The Mets. Philadelphia is at Miami. What does that tell you? Obviously, Philadelphia is going to have to. They're going to have to take at least 2 out of this series to have a chance. They lose more than that, then they're done. Obviously, if they take 2 out, they'll be a game and a half out going into this weekend. So there's some stuff to play for. But that American League wildcard scenario is going to be fun to watch. I hope there's chaos. It would be fun to have a game 163 or possibly a game 164, wouldn't there be? I think it'd be huge. It'd be so much fun to see that. Baseball, they need it. I don't know what their numbers are, if people are watching, or if I don't know that scenario. But this would help them. Robbie Ray, he could be a factor. He's going to win. This looks like he's going to win the American League Cy Young over Shohei. But I think Shohei Ohtani's going to win the MVP. Congratulations to the Chicago White Sox winning the division, going away. And the Dodgers and the Giants with 102 wins. If they're not the surprise team in baseball, I don't know who is. A.J. Hinch has got to get some consideration for Coach of the Year, but that's got to go to the Giants coach. I say that for A.J. because he's taken a morbid team. Detroit's got some young talent coming, and they played some inspired baseball. Miggy's looked good. I think he's 17 hits, maybe 16 hits away from 3,000. I mean, it's looking – the future looks bright for Detroit. But getting back to the teams that matter right now, it all comes down to the Yankees against the Blue Jays and also against Tampa. Boston's got some nerve tosses coming up now with Baltimore and Washington. So if they lose that top spot in the wild card, then they don't deserve to be in it, plain and simple. Seattle and Oakland are doing battle tonight, so the start of their 3-game set, so one of them will be knocked out. And if Oakland beats Seattle, then it is going to be just a 3-team race coming into this weekend. But it's coming down to the last minute, everybody. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. We hope you enjoy it too. Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to play that interview we had Chris Krogman from the Believe in Monsters podcast. They are the Chicago Bears Midway Monsters of the Midway, just in case you're wondering. His Twitter handle is Shy1985. So he remembers the good year for the Chicago Bears when they were amazing. Probably one of the best defenses of all time, if not the best of all time. If they're not, they're in the top 2 or 3. That was a magical year, 1985, when they made that 15-1 record and won the Super Bowl. I remember being in Chicago. I'll mention it with Chris. I was there in college. I was a junior. Junior year. Yeah. And we were going down for a college radio seminar that Loyola Chicago put on. And it was so electric in Chicago that year. So much fun. I think Chicago beat Dallas 44-0 that weekend. And Dallas had just been in the NFC Championship game, or they were a playoff team. That tells you how dominant Chicago was. But we'll talk to Chris coming up right after the break. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-ounce sports platform and networks and Zingo TV, channel 761. Don't go anywhere.
Twelve-ounce Sports has a new home for betting. BetUS.com is the official place to place your bets and support 12-ounce sports. All you have to do is go to BetUS.com and type in the promo code 120ZE and you'll instantly get a deposit bonus. This is America's favorite sports book. And remember, always gamble responsibly.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-ounce sports platform and networks, including Zingo TV channel 761. Now let's go to our guest line and let's welcome in Chris Krogman from the Bullpen Lounge. He's a Chicago Bears guy, amongst other teams in all the platforms, Blackhawks, Mets, Denver Nuggets. Chris, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hey, Captain Lou. Thanks for having me. I also host a Bears podcast called Believe in Monsters. You can find us on Twitter, BIM_pod on Twitter.
And your Twitter handle is at Shy Bears 1985. I love that. My favorite 1985 Chicago Bears story is I was a junior at Central Michigan, and we came down to Chicago for a college radio conference that Loyola was hosting, and we were staying. He was at the Mart Plaza. They closed the McDonald's because, lo and behold, Refrigerator Perry was coming in to do a McDonald's commercial. And boy, the town was so electric back then. It just was one heck of a year for the Bears back then, man.
Yeah, talk about a team with some swagger and some, kind of confidence that exuded, enough to make a Super Bowl winning song before they had even, gotten there. What a bunch of swag.
God, hard to believe that's been almost 40 years ago. Gosh, I don't even want to think about how long ago that was, but it sure was a fun team to watch. Well, before we came on tonight, you and I were kind of lamenting about our teams and our tales of woe right now. Well, I got to tell you, Chris, I feel bad for you. The Bears yesterday, or Sunday rather, that was kind of that was a rough one too. I'm sure it was a rough one for you to watch, but it just was a rough one from afar.
Yeah, pretty brutal beat. A lot of excitement going into the week, obviously, with Justin Fields' first start. The team did not seem very well prepared to handle the Browns defense that was coming at them pretty hard most of the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, they had, what was it? Was it 9 sacks? Is that what it was?
Yeah, ended up being 9 sacks. Fields averaged 0.78 seconds was his average time to throw the ball, which, as you and I both know, is not nearly enough time to even think about what you're going to do, let alone execute.
Yeah. Oh, and you got a Cleveland Browns team you're walking into that, I know they lost to Kansas City, but I think that was an anomaly. That team, I think, is loaded for bear, and I think they're going to make some noise in the AFC. And what a tough way to start. I would have thought possibly they would have waited to start Fields against Detroit this coming Sunday.
Yeah, you would have probably liked to see that ideally with the Dalton injury, with him banging his knee up the week before, having that bone bruise contusion where both of his tibia, fibia banged together, causing him, some pain. You would have liked to have waited for Fields one more week, probably against the division rival Lions, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. I'm glad they didn't roll Nick Foles out there, but Cleveland was a tough matchup on the road to start Fields' career. That defense has been a little shaky for Cleveland to start the year, but they're uber talented. I mean, Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney are a phenomenal outside linebacker or defensive end crew there in Cleveland.
I read today that Matt Nagy's press conference, they said that he is open to starting all 3 quarterbacks. It's almost like an open competition against the Lions on Sunday. Have you read that? Have you heard that? What are your thoughts about that?
So from my understanding, the quote was potentially taken a little bit out of context. The only way that Fields doesn't make that start is if his hand is unable to perform. Fields has said, "I'm fine." They got an x-ray after the game. The x-ray came back negative. So as far as we know, it should be Justin Fields. The only reason we see anything different is if Fields can't go for some reason or another. There's highly it's highly unlikely that Andy Dalton can come back in 2 weeks from a bone bruise. And then, Nick Foles is pretty much an emergency situation as if Fields can't go.
I look at the defense for the Bears, and I thought they didn't do that bad. Khalil Mack had a couple of sacks yesterday. I thought they held the Cleveland offense, pretty well in check. I mean, they gave up a couple of big plays, but, from what I saw in the highlights and on the Red Zone channel, I thought, they didn't do that bad.
For a team facing an offense that's sixth in the league in scoring in Cleveland, I thought the Bears defense played very well, considering they were on the field for 78 plays. They held Cleveland to 26 points. I know Cleveland started to run the ball towards the end of the game, kind of, run the clock down a bit, wear the defense out. Kareem Hunt had that long run. But yeah, I thought the defense played well. And I think through 3 weeks, we've seen Sean Desai, the new defensive coordinator for the Bears, perform well. Honestly, I think he's had some good plans, some good quarters defense against, the last couple of weeks. We saw 3 turnovers or 4 turnovers against Cincinnati. The Rams game was tough, obviously, but I think the Rams are a legit Super Bowl contender this year. They look really good. I know you're very familiar with Matt Stafford. He's extremely talented. Hooking up with Sean McVay was just a great marriage there in LA. So I think the Bears defense, is what it is. Pretty talented in the front 7. I think Robert Quinn is finally showing that he was injured last year and is playing pretty well this year. He came off the ball hard. He beat his opponent quite a bit to Baker Mayfield. And unfortunately, Mayfield had, some good escapes as well. I mean, he got out of a couple sacks himself and threw the ball away or even completed passes when he thought he was already going to be tackled. So yeah, I think, they pressured the quarterback well, for being on the field for as long as they were, for not having an offense that could sustain any amount of drives. We've seen this before from Chicago, they're a talented defense. They play well. They get worn down. They get tired. They get beat. I mean, you can't ask them to do everything.
No, you can, unfortunately. And that sounds like something that's familiar with us over here by Motown. We're joined by Chris Krogman. You can see him at Shy Bears 1985, co-host of a couple of podcasts, including the Bullpen Lounge. I invite you to check that out, where you can get all your podcasts. I know it's only been 3 games, and, I don't think there's a seat any hotter for a coach right now than there is in Chicago. Matt Nagy, I know he's hearing it. When I sent you that last tweet, I deleted it because I had saw an erroneous report that he was fired already. Your guy? I know it's only 3 games, but if this keeps up, do you see him lasting the season?
So Chicago has a history of never firing a coach in midseason. Okay. And, my biggest problems with Nagy is his stubbornness. He, I think even fans can see there are pretty simple changes that he could make to, give his quarterback a better chance, and he's not doing it. So last year he, gave up coordinator duties, allowed Bill Lazor to call plays. At least that was the assumption or the plan and what we were led to believe. Lazor did well. Bears scored a lot more points under Bill Lazor than they did under Nagy, assuming that, he was the one actually leading the ship. So I think, Nagy in his presser said that, all options are open. He can potentially give up play calling as soon as this weekend. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll be able to tell very quickly on the style of offense that Chicago runs if, Nagy's calling the plays or if Lazor's calling the plays. In all honesty, a Matt Nagy offense doesn't look like he's got a plan. It doesn't look like he's stacking plays together. It doesn't look like he's using his weapons to the best of their abilities. A lot of his routes are kind of sit down routes where he's asking guys to have contested catches on every play instead of being wide open. And it's kind of odd because he is a good play designer, but he just doesn't seem to be able to kind of game plan and have a fluid rhythm to a game. Whereas Laser last year, with Trubisky, when he was kind of forced into calling plays, at least had a semblance of a plan where you could see, a zone stretch run game mixed in with some play action and some rollouts that benefited Mitch in his strengths. And I think Fields has a lot of the same strengths that Trubisky does as far as mobility and being able to throw on the run. As far as Nagy getting fired, the only way I see that happening is if things continue to just go very, very badly. They have Detroit this Sunday, probably a winnable game, but you never know. Detroit, even though they're 0-3, has played very well. In my opinion, I thought they played the Packers tight on Monday night. They were in that Baltimore game until the very end. Obviously, a heartbreaker with Tucker hitting the world record beating field goal. But Detroit's played well, so I don't think this is a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. But then they go into a 6-game stretch of just a brutal schedule. And if they come out of that, 0-for or, winning one game, the only thing I could see happening is Ryan Pace says, all right, look, ownership, I want to keep my job. So I think I'm going to have to let Matt Nagy go and you let me do it in the middle of the year. Let Bill Lazor or Sean Desai take over as the head coach. That would be my own personal choices. I'm not saying Pace has any dog in the hunt, but I don't think there's any way if Pace lets this go all the way to the end of the season and they're, 3 or 4 win team that he keeps his job either. So that's the only way I see Nagy getting fired. But like I said, Chicago does not have a history of firing coaches in midseason.
One of the things that I had heard and read about for Chicago this year, Chris, was they were going to possibly highlight and make Montgomery the focal point of that offense. Has that been the case this year for you guys?
It seemed to against the Rams a little bit. I mean, he got more carries than he has the last 2 weeks. I think Cincinnati kind of did a good job with Montgomery, held him around 60 yards. Same thing with the Browns. But, I mean, what Nagy said was 20 carries a game, and we haven't seen it. I don't think Nagy is really using, his entire offense the way I would use it. I mean, I really do like the, Shanahan, the old school Shanahan, Kubiak style offense of just, stretching your offensive line laterally, allowing your running back to kind of pick his hole and burst up field. And I mean, in my opinion, when we've seen David Montgomery run those type of runs, he busts out for big gains. And then that, of course, brings on a lot of ability to do play action, a lot of ability to roll your quarterback out, suck the defense up and open up a lot more for your offense. But, the only other thing for Nagy is if he's, kind of falling into that early Andy Reid style where he just gives up on the run way too soon. I mean, I could see that being kind of a problem for a young coach that grew up as a quarterback that wants to throw the ball a lot, but we have not seen enough David Montgomery, in my opinion. No.
Through 3 games for the Bears, I know it's kind of tough to find positive things, just like with the Lions. I think the Lions, to me, the more positive thing I've seen out of Detroit was that they made adjustments. Matt Patricia didn't do that. So what could you take out of the first 3 games, if anything, on a positive light for the Bears?
Defense looks good. Yeah, I mean,
I know it's tough. Tough. I agree.
Jalen Johnson and Roquan Smith look like they are extremely talented players. Offensive line is shaky. It's unfortunate. We've still got some young guys there that aren't as good as they should be. The first 2 games were better than this last game, obviously. But the coach didn't really do a whole lot to help him out. There weren't a lot of chip blocks. There weren't a lot of, tight ends in to help out. Positives, yeah, I would say Jalen Johnson and Roquan Smith on the defensive side of the ball. Robert Quinn, for sure, has looked a lot better. Khalil Mack over the last 2 games has looked better than he has in the past, I'd say even going back to last year. But
Sure.
last year he was hurt, banged up most of the season. I think I heard 4 different injuries throughout the year for Mac last year. So that's been the positives, is the defense is keeping them in games. Honestly, for everybody who wants to start Justin Fields, and I do too, believe me, Andy Dalton has looked okay. I mean, he gets the ball out quick, which behind this offensive line, and maybe that's why they looked okay in his first 2 starts, is he gets the ball out quick. He's limited, obviously, can't go downfield as much as, he probably would like to, as much as he did when he was younger. But he's just limited. He just can't do that anymore, but he can get the ball out fast. I mean, that's his kind of his calling card. He's under 5 yards per attempt, I think. But offensively, and David Montgomery, when he does have a hold, is explosive. I mean, he hit that first play in the Rams game for like 47 yards. I'd like to see him get out in space more. I'd like to see some more screens out of Nagy. Not wide receiver screens. I'd like to see some actual running back screens, get your offensive linemen out in space, and get Montgomery out there with some blocking. And I think he could cause some damage.
I tend to agree with that, and that's what I'm worried about when they play Detroit on Sunday. Detroit tends to make teams get well in a hurry. Hey, real quick, I want to get your opinion on the NFC North this past weekend. We saw the Packers game last night. They look like the Packers of old. Maybe Aaron Rodgers was right. That first game was an anomaly. They got better against Detroit in the second half. Very impressive. Just when I thought maybe if Detroit could pull that off and San Francisco win, Detroit could be tied for first at 1-2. But the Packers looked pretty good yesterday. I think they're still the class of the division.
Definitely. You had an off season of Aaron Rodgers, basically, a lot of drama surrounding Green Bay. I don't know how much Devontae Adams really played in the preseason. But that stuff matters. Timing matters. Reps with your guys matter. Even if it's just a little bit to knock the rust off. And the Saints have a good defense. So, that first game definitely, I think, was an anomaly. The Packers are a solid team. Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and that defense with Jair Alexander and, Preston Smith is there. Obviously, the other Smith brother is still on the shelf, but Rashawn Gary's a tough competitor as well for the Packers. So I think, they are the class of the division. They're tough. And, as far as Detroit goes, like I mentioned earlier, they're playing tough. I really like Matt Campbell, for all of his, kind of not idiosyncrasies, but his funny oddities with the coffee story and the biting the kneecaps and whatnot. Or Dan Campbell, is it Matt Campbell?
Yeah.
Goodness, I'm getting ISU mixed up in
That's
here.
all right.
So yeah, no, I like the Lions kind of gritty scrappiness. And then the Vikings kind of are, they're yet to be
hard to
determined.
read.
They are, it honestly, the entire NFL is kind of yet to read.
Oh,
We're 3 weeks in, and I'm not sure who's good and who's not.
Kansas City in last place after 3 weeks. Who would have thought that, eh?
Never. And the Raiders looking solid, and the Rams, like I said, look elite. So
Wow.
we're gonna have a good season ahead of us, Captain. But I think the NFC North shakes out with the Packers on top. You're probably going to see the Vikings second, and then, the Bears and the Lions fighting it out for third and fourth. Unless the Bears can, somehow figure out this offensive thing, they can maybe challenge for second. But I think the Packers kind of own this division still.
Last question for you, Chris. I'll let you go. College football question. Is ND legit?
Man, after Pine came in, they look legit. I'm not 100% sure. Well, Cohen looked okay.
Yeah.
He's just got he seems to have some limitations as well. He likes to hold the ball a lot longer than I'd like to see. He needs to get rid of the ball. Drew Pine looked really solid, and they really beat up Wisconsin that second half, and I was pretty impressed. You hear it year in and year out. Notre Dame's a pretender. They don't belong in the top 10. They don't belong in the college football playoffs. They get beat by the SEC every year, but kind of everybody does. So I don't know. Yet to be determined.
all they do is win. They win the games in front of them, and it's going to be a fun game to watch with them in Cincinnati this coming week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing Notre Dame doesn't have is cupcakes. I mean, you don't see too many, walk in the park games like Holy Cross or, St. Mary's School for the Blind or whatever. So that's one thing I do appreciate about Notre Dame football.
Well, I got to tell you, I took my son there. You can probably see the picture in the background. About 7-8 years ago, and it is my favorite place. It will always be one of my favorite places to go. Not a more friendlier place to watch a football game, and the history and everything. I really, really enjoyed going there.
Yeah, it's an awesome place, awesome stadium, good people. I mean, Midwest people are always the heart of America, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Chris, this has been an absolute treat. I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Good luck with your Bears. Hopefully we won't be living the whole 2021 season in misery, and let's see if we can get some wins after you guys play the Lions. After that, I hope you go on a nice long winning streak.
There you go. Captain Lou, I really appreciate you having me.
You bet. Thank you. Well, we want to thank again Chris Krogman for joining us. Great talk, great insight on the Bears. I'll tell you what, it could be there could be some trouble in Chicago. They're 1-2 right now. They've got Detroit coming into town. Detroit looking for their first win. Can you imagine what it's going to be like if the Lions beat the Bears on Sunday? We don't know who's going to be the quarterback. I don't think it's going to be Nick Foles. I don't think it's going to be it. Well, it's not going to be Dalton. I don't think he's ready. Could it really be Nick Foles, the quarterback of the Bears on Sunday? If I'm Detroit and I'm Dan Campbell, I bring the house every play. You've got to. You've got to make him beat it. You got to make Justin Fields beat you. No doubt about it. What has Detroit got to lose? They're 0-3. Something to turn the momentum. But the Bears are in trouble. No doubt about it. And the hot seat's getting hotter. Matt, he's got to hear it. It's obvious. All coaches hear it. But Chicago, with a win, they're 2-2. It's crazy what wins will do for you. Just ask Green Bay. Everybody was ready to send Aaron Rodgers out to dry. Maybe he was right. Maybe it is an anomaly. They looked good the other night. As Nicky DeMatthews mentioned, yeah, they get the benefit of a couple of penalty calls, but she also said the refereeing is bad all through the league right now. And she's not going to get an argument out of me. We're going to take one more quick break. We come back, we'll talk more about the NFL. We'll look through the standings and the scores, give you our surprises, our disappointments after 3 games. Still to come. Matt Gamlin's going to stop by. We're going to talk a little AEW, and he's going to be our guest prognosticator. We still have the Captain Lou 6-Pack Challenge to come. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live. You're on the 12-ounce sports platform and networks and the Zingo TV, channel 761. There we go as we return to the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-ounce sports platform and networks and Zingo TV channel 761. I also want to remind you about our newest sponsor here on the network, BetUS. It's a betting site, very safe. We highly recommend it. And they've got an offer for our 12-ounce sports viewers and listeners. Use the promo code 12-ounce. That's 120Z. That's it. Your first deposit, you will get a 125% bonus. That's right. You deposit $100, they're going to give you an extra $125. That's a no-brainer. That's the lock of the decade. We talk about it on our NFL preview show, which you can see me host live on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. here on the network, along with the AM Drive's Aaron Crouch And also Mike Carvalho stops in from time to time. We said it on there. We'll say it on here. We say it on all of our shows. BetUS is the way to go. Use the promo code 12ounce. That's 120Z. And you get your first deposit up to $1,000 matched 125%. That is free money. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you on that. If you don't do it, you're a knucklehead. You have to do it. It's that simple. And while you're at it, make sure you tell them the captain sent you. You watched us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. You heard about it. You see it right on the screen. Promo code 12ounce. That's 120OZ. That is BetUS. Very safe way to bet. They've got a lot of prop bets. The games that you might want to be watching, the Lions, the Packers. Baseball this weekend. The wild card scenario. The Yankees in Tampa Bay. You've got San Diego going to San Francisco. Whatever. Milwaukee going to Los Angeles. Big games coming up to determine the playoff teams. Because right now in Major League Baseball, you've got Milwaukee, you've got Chicago, and you've got Tampa. Those are locked in as far as division winners. You've got the Dodgers and the Giants going to the playoffs. We don't know which one is it. Atlanta still has a 2.5 game lead over Philadelphia. Last we saw, actually, let's take a quick look at the scores. Last we saw, here we go. Baltimore's on top of Boston, 3-2 in the bottom of the 8th. Yanks on top of Toronto, 3-2. Atlanta on top of Philly, 2-0 in the top of the 8th. Atlanta wins that game. They're up 3.5. That's going to be tough for Philadelphia to try to overcome. Boston loses. New York wins. They're in a tie for the top 2 wild card spots. So, again, that's BetUS. That's our site. That's our new sponsor here on 12-ounce Sports and here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. That promo code, 12-ounce, 120OZ. Use that with your first deposit, and you get 125% bonus up to $1,000. So for every $100 you get, they'll throw in $125 for every $100 that you deposit. No brainer. Lock of the year, lock of the decade. That's BetUS. Hey, as we mentioned, let's take a quick look back now at the standings. And if you're looking for a surprise, raise your hand if you said, and be honest with me, I don't want to hear any of that Hoboken hustle talk. How many of you thought Kansas City would be in last place after 3 games in the AFC West? And how many thought that Denver and the Raiders would be on top, tied at 3-0? I didn't. Now, we got some insight on our NFL preview shows that we had back in August. And they said, watch out for Denver. Now, I know they haven't exactly set the world on fire with the teams that they played, but their defense has come to play. That was going to be their strength. And they got Teddy Ballgame, Teddy Bridgewater. The guy is a good game manager. Denver is 3-0. But what about the Raiders? That game last week, who I thought, that was my lock of the week. They didn't cover my spread, but they made somewhat of a smart person out of me. They won in overtime again, this time against Miami. Jacoby Brissett showed something to me. I didn't think he was all that. But look at the Raiders. They're 3-0. Are they a legit playoff team? Can Derek Carr make it through the year? No, I've been on here. I've been bashing John Gruden a little bit. 43% winning percentage other than a Super Bowl year. Well, they're 3-0. And like I said, I will admit I'm wrong when I'm wrong, which is, more often than not, it seems like. But I didn't think the Raiders were going to be 3-0. No way. You look at the NFC South, and you've got the Carolina Panthers. Now, I told you here they're going to be a playoff team. People poo-pooed it. Look who's 3-0 leading that division. Now, I know it's early. You've got Tampa and you've got New Orleans at 2-1. New Orleans doing better than I thought. But how about the Arizona Cardinals? Now, granted, they only beat Jacksonville to stay undefeated, but they're undefeated. They went into Minnesota and won a road game. They've got a tough test coming up this week. They've got the Rams. That's going to be a dandy game there. There's going to be some fireworks in that game too. Matt Stafford's on my fantasy team. Booyah. So that's going to be fun. Arizona's looking good. Kyler Murray. 103 points the Cardinals have right now. They are tied with Tampa Bay for the most points in the NFC. And as I look down my list, that's tops in the NFL. So Arizona's 3-0. Unbelievable. And again, those are my surprise teams. Everybody else, I don't know. Pittsburgh, not really surprised they're 1-2. Boy, I'll tell you, Ben Roethlisberger looks old. He looks tired. He's not getting a whole lot of support from that line of scrimmage. I grant you that. What about Indianapolis? I know Carson Wentz played. Wow. 0-3. Tied with Jacksonville. Jacksonville has scored more points. Or no, I take that back. They've only scored 3 more points than Jacksonville. 56 in 3 games. That's ugly. You know who scored more points than Indianapolis? Mike on AM Drive? The Detroit Lions. 67 points, baby. Not much, but they've scored 67. So maybe, I don't know, another disappointment as I look down my list real quick. I mean, obviously the Chiefs are 1-2. They're struggling. I think they'll bounce back. Maybe Seattle. I thought they might be a playoff team. And again, it's only 3 weeks in. They always seem to find a way to right the ship. But they're 1-2. And they haven't looked strong. That epic collapse against Tennessee last week. Then they lost in Minnesota. I'll give credit to the Vikings. They're 1-2. I didn't think that was going to happen. I still say they're a mess, but Kirk Cousins, he came through 300 and some yards passing again. He's the stat man right now. So, I don't know, maybe Washington with their defensive woes. They're 1-2, and that division is still a hot mess. I think the Cowboys will win it by default, like our first guest, Nikki DeMatthews, said. You know, the jury's still out on them. And she's right. The Eagles, are they fool's gold? They look pretty pedestrian last night. I don't know if that's the byproduct of well, let's see. I'm a little bit of a weird connection here. Let's see if we might have our next guest. Let's go back to our guest line, and indeed we do. Let's bring in my tag team partner on the road, on assignment tonight, but he's taking time out to join us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Matt Gamlin. Matt, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Good to be back on the show as always.
Heck yeah, we want to have you on tonight. First, let's get the prognostication out of the way. Everybody's been waiting with bated breath to find out this week's Captain Lou Six-Pack Challenge. So how it works is we've got 3 games that we pick against college and the pro, against the spread. And if for those of you that think you can pick those games better than me, let me know on Twitter. Just follow me at The Real Captain Lou, or follow me on Facebook, Louis Gamlin, or drop me an email, CaptainLouSports@gmail.com. Register. That's all you got to do. If you beat me, you're in for the drawing for a $100 Visa gift card and also for a $100 certificate to Fanatics.com. They got some great jerseys and whatnot. Matt, are you ready to be our guest prognosticator?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, let's go. I'm going to let you pick these games first since you're the prognosticator. We're going to go college. Here's a team kind of near and dear to our heart, Matt. Arkansas. Wow, they've been off to a great start. Surprising. Ranked 8th, I believe, in one poll. They're an 18.5-point road dog at Georgia. Give me your gut on this first game.
There's a little bit of doubt for me, just the fact that they are on the road, but I'm going to take Arkansas to cover.
We're right there together on that one. I've got the Hogs plus 18.5. KJ Jefferson, man, he's been a stud. And I thought he's not going to be a surprise for much longer, but he's been a stud, and I think they can cover. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think they can cover. Next up on the docket, we got the Baylor Bears. This is a Big 12 matchup that all of a sudden has got some juice. They're at Oklahoma State. Okie State is a 3.5-point favorite at home, which tells me that it's almost a toss-up. What is your gut feeling on this one?
Well, I'd have to echo the same sentiment. It does kind of feel like a toss-up. In this case, I think I'm going to take the home team minus 3.5. I think I'll go with Oklahoma State to cover.
All right, we're 2 for 2 on this one. I'm right there with you with Oklahoma State. Finally, we've got the Cincinnati Bearcats. They've been the darlings of the group of 5 now for a couple of years. Luke Fickell, who is this going to be his last year as a coach? Is he going to USC? It seems like there's always the Fickell rumors, no pun intended. They're going to Notre Dame, a place near and dear to your heart and my heart. 2.5-point road favorites at Notre Dame. A little surprised by that one, but hey, that's what Vegas is saying. What is Matt saying?
Oh man, and this is also, you look on paper and maybe think, okay, and especially when you get the beginning of the season, you might think that is pretty clear. But now, as we approach, in current day, this is another toss-up. To me, I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to pick Notre Dame to cover. But I could see this going both ways. Notre Dame, especially defensively, has struggled. So I think we could see anything happen here.
Well, okay, so we're different on this one. I took Cincinnati to cover the Spur to lay the 2.5. So that's our first opposite one right there. So you're in the running if that goes your way with Notre Dame. Hey, everybody, just a reminder, too, that these picks will be posted on my Facebook and Twitter pages tomorrow, and you have to use the lines that I use. Now, last week we had a couple of them change. And, for example, the Rams game against Tampa started out a 1.5-point dog. Then they ended up a 1-point favorite. But we all know what happened there. Tampa got ran out of the building. Speaking of Tampa, let's go to the pros, Matt. It's the Tom Brady Bowl, or we'll call it the Tom Brady Bowl, Bill Belichick Bowl, or whatever you want to call it. Tampa taking the ride up I-95 to take on New England. Tampa is a 6.5-point road favorite in this one. What do you think?
I'm taking Tampa Bay to cover.
Yeah, New England. Go ahead.
I think it could be a win by more than 6.5. Needless to say.
Yeah, New England, to me, they looked very beatable last week at home against New Orleans. Yep. And I mean, now granted, Tampa's defense hasn't been playing great, but neither is New England's offense. I'm right there with you. I've got Tampa laying the 6.5. Next up, we're going to go to where Tampa played last week. That being L.A. The Rams and the Chargers on this, or the Rams and the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to make sure I got that right. That is right. Okay, I thought for a minute there, I thought that the Rams game was on the road. They're playing 2 games back to back. I forgot the Chargers are on Monday night. Rams are a 5-point favorite at home against Arizona. One of the surprises of the year, Matt, has been Arizona and Kyler Murray. They're going in undefeated. Battle of the unbeatens. Rams a 5-point favorite at home. Who's going to remain unbeaten, or is it just going to be unbeaten against the spread? Give me your feel.
Boy, first off, let me just say, like, when Arizona is clicking and that offense is firing on all cylinders, they are one of the more fun teams in the league to watch. I love watching Kyler Murray play, and he's only getting better. But man, I'm going to take a gamble here. I'm going to have Arizona cover here.
It's a 4:00 game on Sunday, which is awesome. That means that I don't have to miss any sleep to watch it. I think that's the game, I think, of the day right there.
Oh, 100% agree.
And I'm really looking forward to that one. And I think you could see 70 points scored between those two teams. I'm going to go opposite with you, though. I'm riding the Matt Stafford train. I think they're going to cover that spread and win, possibly in overtime by touchdown, but I think it's going to be around the 38, 30 or 41, 34, somewhere around there. It's going to be a shootout. Finally, go ahead.
Now, what's been your take on Matthew Stafford this season as a sad Lions fan like me?
Well, I'll tell you. Now, I'm not a bitter Lions fan. I'm going to say this. Jared Goff could have made some of those throws in that game against Chicago. They were so wide open. And that touchdown pass to Deshaun Jackson last week, I think you and I could have threw that pass. That being said, Stafford to me has just been playing lights out, and I'm happy for him. I really am. You know, my thing, and you and I have talked about this off the air a time or two. You know, they used to call him Stat Padford all those years, and nobody took him serious. Now all of a sudden he's in LA and he's this elite top 5 quarterback. So we've seen this out of him. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, and I think the difference, he just looks revitalized out there. I mean, you saw Detroit out there last year, and they had no energy, no passion. I mean, this is a team that got blanked by a Carolina squad that didn't have their starting quarterback or running back.
God,
I mean, how do you let
right.
that happen?
Oh my God.
Stafford, I'm happy to see Stafford do so well. I mean, it sucks as a Lions fan because that's the potential that he had. But man, I think now that they have Stafford, no offense to Goff at all, but like now that they have Stafford, I mean, I think they're a clear favorite to go to the Super Bowl even.
Oh my God, they look good. And and the other thing is, Matt, they've got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on defense.
Oh man.
They're all fired up out there, and they are fun to watch. It's going to be the LA version. It's looking like the LA version of The Greatest Show on Turf when they were in St. Louis. So, I'm really excited to see what they can do this year, and they're going to make a run for sure. Hey, we got one game left to pick. We're staying in LA. They play on Monday night, the Raiders and the Chargers. Now, before you make this pick, I'm going to ask you, did you think 3 weeks into the regular season the Kansas City Chiefs would be in last place in the AFC West?
That is mind-blowing to me. But hey, it reminds me too of when the Patriots would have these really underwhelming starts to the season. So it certainly, obviously, can't count them out yet. But man, it's certainly surprising.
Well, we've got Vegas going to LA. Vegas looking pretty strong. The Chargers obviously looking strong. You win at home or on the road at Kansas City. That's saying something in that, at that facility. You got the Raiders 3-0, Chargers 2-1. Chargers are a 3.5-point home favorite. It's going to be a tight game on Monday night. Give me your thoughts on this one.
Derek Carr has been just outstanding, at least statistically, but he's been great this year. He's been leading in passing, and this is what we've been waiting to see again from him for a while, and he's got to keep that up. But honestly, I don't know if I can trust the Chargers even at home. I'm gonna take Las Vegas here to cover.
Wow, we're 3 apart. We're 3 different. So that's cool because I got the Chargers covering the 3.5. So you and I agree on Arkansas and Oklahoma State. You're taking the Golden Domers and I'm taking Cincinnati. We're both taking Tampa. You're going with Arizona to cover and the road dog Vegas. So it ought to be interesting to see how we match up on that. We'll keep an eye on that. Again, everybody, how this works, it's your turn now to pick these games. If you can pick them better than me, you think you can anyways, give me your picks on Facebook. Follow me at Lewis Gamlin. The E is silent. Or you can follow me on Twitter at TheRealCaptainLou or drop me an email, which the majority of you have been doing, captainlousports@gmail.com. You beat me, you're in the drawing for the giveaways. We're going to give away the Tuesday after the national championship game in college football, after Michigan plays Arkansas in the national championship game. It's at captainlousports@gmail.com. We will give the away. We'll announce the winners then. So we got plenty of time. You can enter, and you can win as many times as you want. Our first year winner beat me 5 times. So you got lots of time left to do it. We're going to be doing it every week. Matt, we got a few minutes left. I want to switch gears. We haven't had our podcast for wrestling because both you and I have both been extremely busy on Wednesday nights. We'll get together, do it probably in November. AEW is making some strides. They're changing the game, man. And last week on Dynamite, they had what I think was the best match of the year in Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega. What a match those two put on.
Oh, it's incredible, Matt. I think they just from top to bottom, just a great match. It's my favorite kind of match. Just very physical, hard hitting strikes and good technical action. And they paced the match really, really well. Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, I know, right?
Dragon has just had great selling. They told a wonderful story. Bryan with the neck injury and Kenny pouncing on that and just completely changing the momentum of the match. And just the finish I thought was perfect.
Yes.
And how do you follow that match? I think that was the biggest problem for AEW on that show, but just a fantastic match. I think one of their best matches in their young history.
You know, and I like what they did. They put it on right away, got the people into watching it. It's a great way to do it. I know, and it's like to your point.
Totally.
To your point, it's, but the match they put on afterwards didn't have a lot of juice, but it really didn't have to. I mean, they weren't expecting a whole lot out of that, and it's a perfect match to put after that.
Yeah, and that's not to say the rest of the card suffered that much. It was still a solid program, and I like that they had it open up. I mean, it's a way to get viewers to turn in, or to tune in.
I agree. And then, of course, we've got CM Punk there and Malachi Black, all of that, but CM Punk has made a very good impression. I thought he had a good match on Rampage. He's, again, another good storyteller. We know his history. He's been great for forever. He's refreshed. He's revitalized. Man, I got to tell you, it's an exciting time for us as pro wrestling fans. We talked about that, Matt, the last time you and I did our show together. This is some great times, and it's got to really get WWE. They're going to have to come up with something to top this.
Oh, I totally agree. And just in these last few weeks, even when they first came into existence, I think this is the most excitement that's been around AEW ever. And that's fantastic. And now it's just we have to wait and see like what they do with it now. And I'm really excited as someone who's a huge fan of what they do. I'm very excited.
Oh, I am too. And, it makes you want to tune in or DVR it so you can watch it. And, I haven't been this excited about pro wrestling in quite a while because you watch AEW, then you turn to WWE. What can they do to top it? If history repeats itself, they might be able to get on par with them in a few years. It's, again, we talked about this too. It's eerily similar to right before the Attitude Era of 25 years ago or whatever, that pretty close anyways. And now WWE, they had their pay-per-view. It was all right. And then last night's Raw was decent. I could see the finish they had with Bobby Lashley and with Big E. But again, having the Hurt Business back together, I think was smart. But AEW right now, to me, has got the upper hand.
Oh yeah, especially in terms of momentum and the roster that they're building. It's such a deep roster and they know how to not book repetitive rematches. They've got so many different options for matches at their disposal, and they know how to make them all feel very important.
Well, Matt, thanks. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And it's just very exciting time for someone who's a fan of AEW.
Oh, 100% agree, and can't wait to watch them again this week. Well, Matt, thanks again for taking time out tonight to jump on the show and be our guest prognosticator. Good luck to you with those picks, and keep doing what you're doing, and we'll get you back on here. We'll dedicate a full hour again to the wrestling extravaganza here, probably in about a month or so. So we'll talk to you real soon, and thanks for jumping on.
Yes, sir. Great to be back on. Thank you.
All right. Matt Gamlin, of course, from the Captain Lou and Matt Wrestling Extravaganza. We'll be back together with that on the network here, probably coming up, like I said, in November when things tighten up or quiet down a little bit for his schedule and for mine with the high school football and everything that goes along with it. It is go time right now. So we want to thank Matt Gamlin for taking time out tonight with his busy schedule. So there you go. He made his picks one more time. The Captain Lou Extravaganza's Captain Lou Six-Pack Challenge. Let's put the picks up one more time just to show you what they are. You can look at them, jot them down, put your answers on Twitter at The Real Captain Lou, my Facebook page, which is Louis Gamlin. Drop me an email, captainlousports@gmail.com, and you can be in the drawing. If you beat me, you're in the drawing at the end of the year for the $100 Visa gift card and our $100 Fanatics gift certificate. So we got lots of great prizes for this. We had great participation last couple of years. It gets better as the year goes on, and I know it's going to be a lot of fun coming up right around the holiday time as well. Wow, what a great show tonight. We had a lot of great guests, great conversation. Nikki DeMatthews from the 3rd and 3 podcast talking New York Giants and NFC East. We want to thank her for joining us. Also, Chris Krogman from the Believe in Monsters podcast, which, of course, is the Chicago Bears Monsters of the Midway. He joined us some great conversation about the NFC North and the Bears, what's going on there, how rough it is. Things aren't all bleak just in Detroit. So tonight was misery love company as far as our teams. Maybe we'll get some folks on with teams with winning records next week. You'll have to tune in to find out. We're an equal opportunist. Hey, this reminder, too, we're going to start getting back into ACHA hockey with our interviews coming up here in October. Really looking forward to that. The team that I cover, do play-by-play for, Aquinas. They're back in action Saturday night. We'll have the airing on aqsaints.com, so we're looking forward to that. Join me Saturday morning, 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, for another edition of the NFL Preview Show, the 12-Ounce Sports NFL Preview Show. I'll be joined by Aaron Crouch of the AM Drive, which you can watch every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Pacific, and all points in between. And, of course, Mike Carvalho from the show as well, so from the AM Drive as well. We'll preview week number 4 of the NFL season. So we hope that you could stop by Saturday and check that out. That show will also be replayed at 11 a.m. here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Let's check one more look at the baseball scores before we wrap things up tonight. New York on top of Toronto, 6-2. Atlanta on top of Philadelphia. They've got a runner on first with nobody out. And it's a final score. Baltimore beat Boston. So New York holds on. They're going to be tied for the wild card, first and second. Toronto will still be, now Toronto, I believe, will be 2 games out. So there you go. Well, that's going to do it for our show tonight. Again, thanks to our guest, Nikki DeMatthews from the 3rd and 3 podcast, Chris Krogman from the Believe in Monsters podcast, and also Matt Gamlin from the Captain Lou and Matt Wrestling Extravaganza, our guest prognosticator. Also, some great insight on the AEW and WWE. We want to thank you, the viewer, for taking time out of your show, your day, your show too, for all I know, for your day and night to watch us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. So thank you for taking time out. Again, this reminder, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, but always keep your minds open. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, here on the 12-Ounce Sports Platform and Networks and Zingo TV.